We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 6D, second review of recommended staff handbook language in regard to emergency closing, banked time, comp time for professional and support staff, reduction in support staff, additional vacation language for support staff, unpaid leave, unrequested leaves of absence, reporting pay, family and medical leave, benefits, severance pay / sick leave pay for leave payout, mentoring, reporting of criminal charges, additional work schedule language for professional staff, and workers' compensation. So this is a second review. This is where we would like to and normally approve these recommended additions. I have had the advantage of being in the handbook committees and been in on discussions. But if people that have questions about them, this would be the time to do it. I guess first is there a motion to approve
So move.
this language?
So move.
I will second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve this handbook language. Are there questions or discussion about any of these different parts of the handbook language?
I do want to say on behalf of the policy committee that we really appreciate all the time and effort that everyone has put into the handbook committee, because it has gone through a lot of vetting through the handbook committee that incorporated school board members, staff, professional staff, support staff, administration, office personnel. All of the people that put their time and effort into it has been amazing, because it goes through all of that, comes to policy, we relook at it, it goes back to the handbook, it has another look, and then it comes here. And it's really been a lot of effort and time. And we can only know that this is our first crack at this. So obviously, we were starting with what we had and tried to make it as good as we could make it and bring it forward. And I'm sure there will be changes and tweaks we'll want to make as the year goes on and in the future. So it's been a daunting task for all of you on the handbook committee and coming forward. So from policy's point of view, we really appreciate all that effort, because it was very well brought forward and well thought through.
Yep, and it was a very educational process too, not working in the school, hearing sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 different opinions from the actual workings of what happens. It was very educational, and it helped.
I did have a question on obligation to report criminal charges. It's I guess these really don't have page. Well, I guess looking at the Microsoft paging, it's 7 of 9.
Is this the lawyer in you coming out?
Well, no, again, when I think back on our discussions, I'm looking at the language, therefore district employees are required to report to the district administrator any arrests, criminal charges, convictions, immoral conduct, or other conduct that the staff member knows or reasonably should know could affect the district, its board members, faculty, staff, or pupils. To me, it seems like when I recall the discussions, we were going to have an obligation to report essentially anything, any convictions, arrests. And now, if you read that sentence, it's qualified at the end by conduct that the staff member knows or reasonably should know could affect the district. And if that language was to also be read to modify arrests, so it'd be arrests that could affect the district, seemingly a staff member could not report something if in their mind they decided it did not affect the district. And I thought we were going to have a more blanket reporting policy. Am I misreading that? Was the way I remember it incorrect?
No, you remember it correct. I read this differently than you're reading it. I don't read it as being, it says any arrests, comma, criminal charges, comma, excuse me, convictions, comma, immoral conduct, comma, or other conduct. So that isn't immoral conduct that was an arrest. That is immoral conduct separate from the arrests. You know, each one is listed separately. So I'm reading that way. You were reading it as...
I'm just concerned about the phrase at the end that could affect the district. And if that could be read to modify arrests, then they would only have to report arrests that they deem is something that could affect the district. So if it's the DUI or something like that, they could conclude, well, that does not affect the district, I'm not reporting that.
But the way it's written, it's any arrests,
Well,
comma,
yeah.
any criminal charges, so any arrests need to be reported. The last section, that's how I'm reading it, it's similar to Pam's, or any other conduct that they know should be reported. You're trying to catch everything.
Well, that's the way I read it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it could be read that everything in front of that last phrase could affect the district is modified by it. Arrests, criminal charges, convictions, all of those things are modified by that later language. Now, if no one else reads it that way, then it's a hyper-technical reading, and so be it. If no one else is concerned about that, that's fine. It's just, it is different. That interpretation, if it's wrong, it's wrong. But if that interpretation, if anyone else finds it reasonable, that was at odds with what I remember being discussed in the meeting. That's the only reason I bring it up. But if my interpretation is hyper-technical, then we'll just proceed on. And
How would you write that to include all those things that in there as being something that should be reported?
well, you could make it maybe two different sentences.
Could you put a period after immoral conduct, period, also any
Yes.
other conduct that the staff member knows or reasonably should know could affect
That would be the
district?
very safe way to do it. That would address my
That doesn't change.
my interpretation problem. But if
Yep.
no one else thinks that's necessary, I'm not going to.
Well, we can do that because it doesn't change how the rest of us are interpreting the intent
Okay.
of it. And if it makes it clearer for you, that's fine.
Well, I'm not asking everyone change it for me. If no one else thinks it's a problem, we can
Well-
press on.
If you interpret it differently, that means it is open for
Somebody else
interpretation.
could, too.
Somebody else can
I can
too.
see how it could be interpreted.
So let's do what you just
Right,
said.
and the intent was as you stated,
You got that?
As you recall, at the
in policy it was.
In policy, yeah.
This was language that we did receive from legal counsel in
Okay.
regard to this, because we had drafted some language and then we did forward it to legal counsel just to make sure that it was, but I don't believe you're changing the meaning of what's in there through the grammatical change, but you're planning on having a period after convictions or
After in
Immoral
immoral
conduct.
conduct, period.
any arrest and immoral conduct, period. Other conduct,
Also other. Isn't that what you said also?
I put also in there,
Also
also
other
any other conduct.
correct, the districts
Also
should
any-
be reported.
Yeah.
Also any other.
And
And pupils, after pupils should be reported.
must be reported.
Yep. Same word, other one.
Is required to be.
Yeah, same wording.
Under unpaid leave of absence, which is on the, like the fourth page, third page. I think under professional staff, in the third line, it says covered by the state of federal. I think that should be state or federal. Family Medical Leave Act. All right, that's all I had. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion about any of these provisions? And this is all going into the handbook, so, I mean, we're also then having the handbook on for approval in August, so
So we'll make changes in both places.
there's another look at all of this, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, great. If there's no other, there are no other questions or discussion, then all in favor of approving this language signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the motion carries. The language, the proposed language is approved for addition into the employee handbook.